Hi, I'm Kaylee, and this is my mom, Jody. Can you give me a background about yourself?
I was born February 28th, 1975, on my dad's birthday. I grew up Bruceville, Indiana. I was the oldest of three girls, the best, of course. I met a boy when I was a sophomore in high school. We went on the first date, fell in love, ended up married. Have been for 21 years. I have 5 kids. Corey, he's my stepson, 26. Caleb is 20. You are 19. Kayla, she would have been 15. And Cammie is 10. I now work at Western Intermediate as a special ed aide in 4th grade. But before that, I had stayed at home and then worked at Bonavista. Started out as a volunteer when Kayla was there, then went to a sub, and then went into being an aide's position there.
Okay. I know you've been through some struggles in life, like losing Kayla. Can you explain more about her and her needs?
Kayla had a chromosome disorder. There wasn't a name or a syndrome. It was just a deletion of 10q with unidentified material that reattached to it. They weren't sure what had happened. They wanted to do genetics testing, and we didn't end up doing it, so they thought it was just kind of a fluke. She was always really happy through needle sticks, testing, probing, etc. She always smiled. Her smile was contagious. As far as her needs, she had, see, here it goes. She had a little, but yet a lot. I say that because when I thought it was a lot at the beginning, I got used to it, so it became little. But to someone with a child with special needs, sorry, her needs were probably looked at as a lot. Everything from oxygen when she was sick to a feeding tube, leg braces, etc. I always looked at it as Kayla had her needs, sometimes lots of them, but at least I had her and she had us.
So, how did you learn about her disability?
I didn't know I was pregnant with Kayla until I was 9 weeks along. The other with you guys,
Yeah.
I kind of knew. I didn't with her. I didn't have a whole lot of signs. Normal pregnancy. The doctor didn't comment or suggest there were any problems. He didn't comment that I noticed she was smaller than what you guys were, but the doctor didn't say there was a problem there. Back then, there with Caleb, you, and her, they didn't ask you if you wanted to test to determine if there were birth defects. Now, like with Cammie, they ask you, would you like to do the test? So of course I didn't do the test.
Yeah.
And so I delivered at 40 weeks, 2 days. She weighed 6 pounds, 2 ounces. She was fine. Named her Kayla Brienne. I started to notice she wasn't eating very well, and then her breathing wasn't doing as well. Of course, I freaked out.
Yeah.
And they took her and put her in the nursery. And as the day went on, she didn't get any better. She kind of got worse. Being in Kokomo, not that they don't always know what they're talking about as far as doctor-wise, but the hospital wasn't equipped to figure everything out. So the doctors didn't know what was going on. So they drew her blood to try to help figure out what was going on. I was told it could possibly be her heart because of her breathing. Because sometimes when you have heart problems, it'll affect your breathing.
Yeah.
It was also mentioned to me that she had almond-shaped eyes, and I put those in quotes because of it being a chromosome, which they didn't know at that point. Lower setting ears, which means your eyes are here. If you go straight across, you touch your ears. Kids with chromosome abnormalities, the ears set lower than the lines of the eyes. Also, they call them simian creases. And if you notice you have creases on your hands like this, Hers were straight across.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like if you were to bend your hand, it'd be straight across. And then she had a couple webbed toes,
Okay.
which I didn't think anything of there because some kids have that.
I didn't know any of that.
Yep, she did. And so they decided to draw more blood for chromosome testing. So they did that. She was on oxygen through this because just to help her breathing to make it easier. So they did it, and then they came and got me, and they said we drew it in the wrong tube. We're gonna have to redraw her blood again in the right tube. So they redrew her blood in the correct tube. She quit breathing because she was crying so hard.
Yeah.
So they finally got in the right tube, and then I said, well, are we going to find out here in a couple of days? They said, no, it takes a process of 5 to 6 weeks to send out. So we didn't know. So I knew at that point there was nothing they could do in Kokomo. So I asked her to be transferred to Riley. So came the ambulance, the doctors, they were along with her, transferred down to Riley. She remained at Riley another 8 days in the NICU. They called it in the pod because there was like little rooms. And of course, I was thinking the worst because we'd never been through that.
Yeah.
And she was the only baby in that NICU that was just on oxygen. All the other babies were on big breathing machines and that.
Yeah.
So when we got in there, she was the least, extensive case. We brought her home on oxygen and an NG tube down her nose into her stomach. And that's how she ate because which I did know with chromosome disorders and abnormalities, some of the things are slowed down developing. So that's why her suck wasn't where it needed to be. And that's why she had the NG tube. But to leave, you had to be trained. So we had to be trained to put it down and into her stomach successfully before we could bring her home. 4 weeks later, we met with the genetics doctor who then told us about her chromosome disorder.
Okay. How did you react? Did you ever feel like the public would react differently than you wanted?
Well, I was kind of numb at first. I went from having 3 kids before Kayla, giving birth to 2 of them. All of them I call typical because I don't like the word normal because not everybody's normal. Did everything typical baby, toddlers, and kids did. To standing in a NICU asking if we would be here till she was off oxygen because I didn't know you could go home on oxygen.
Yeah.
I just thought you always stayed in the hospital on oxygen. I was too busy at first to really let it set in. Then one day it did, and I cried and cried. I was angry at everyone, not because she was different, but because I was scared of the struggles she could have in the future. And everyone kept saying, she'll just be like all the other kids. It was, she'll catch up. She's just going slow right now, but she'll catch up. And I knew, I knew she wouldn't because anything set with that, But I was more not sad and angry for myself, but for her.
Yeah.
I knew some of the public would react differently because there are stupid people in society. I got everything from, oh, what's wrong with her? To, oh, did something happen while you were pregnant? I said, I think this is where I learned selective listening, which you guys know what that is because mom, and I don't listen.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like guilty with it? Did you ever feel like it was your fault?
No, I did. I did at first. I tried to go back and think, well, did I do something wrong? Because some people say that. Did we do anything different? Did I do something different? Maybe it's because I didn't know I was pregnant so early. But I didn't do anything differently.
Yeah.
There was nothing I did that would have caused it. And then they did confirm that later on when we got the testing back saying, there were 3 kids born previously 2 of them with me and your dad, and there was no issues. So
Yeah. In the article, a passage refers to family constellation, talks about how the other children felt unwanted by the parents. Did any of your children have a harder time adjusting?
and you can correct me if you add that in,
See,
but
I don't really remember much.
right. I don't really feel Kayla made adjusting harder for you guys. She did take more of our time.
Yeah.
But you guys were right beside us, helping in everything from feeding, the therapy. You guys just kind of became our best friends.
Yeah.
I was worried I wasn't giving you guys enough attention because I was always busy with her, but that kind of is the same aspect what I had. I had Caleb, and then I had you, and then I was worried. Great, now I'm not going to give Caleb enough love because I had you, which is every mom's fear, and it doesn't.
I think all parents feel
so
that way.
I don't think you felt that. So I would,
I don't think I felt that way. I mean, I just remember like always like playing around with her and stuff. So like, I mean, I think that I kind of like included myself with.
I made sure you guys were included through everything we did with her.
Yeah. What support did you have at that time?
Tons of support. We have a big family.
Yeah.
So your dad was biggest supporter. He was always helping with Kayla, minus the feeding. But the feeding, I stayed at home and he went to work, so I just fed her through the night.
Yeah.
You guys, mom, my dad, my sisters, my in-laws, even my friends, they'd volunteer to help out if I need anything. Stacy, everybody. Yeah. Once a month, Dad and I would do our date night.
Yeah.
And it took a while. They had to pry us away, but if it was 2 or 3 hours just to kind of give us that break. Mm-hmm. But I didn't like to ask because she was my daughter. She was my responsibility. And that's probably been, not that I don't like Cammy run wild down, but she was my little girl, it was, nobody could, I was worried somebody was not going to take care of her the right way.
Yeah.
So.
Can you give me a day-to-day routine that you went through while taking care of her?
Well, when we brought her home, she was on oxygen. Mm-hmm. She had an apnea monitor. And an apnea monitor is, well, back then it was a band that wrapped around her belly. Okay. Had like 7 or 8 wires that came out because it had little pads that stuck to the attachment. And that would alarm if she quit breathing. Mm-hmm. So it would let us know. So in her crib, she had her oxygen, her apnea monitor, and then she had her NG tube. Mm-hmm. So every, I'd have to feed her small amounts every hour. Okay. And I'd set my alarm for every hour, and I'd have to let it go slowly into her stomach over a period of 15 minutes. So when that 15 minutes was up of that hour, I'd take it, I'd rinse it out, set it down, and go back to bed for about 40 minutes. And then my alarm would go back off again. And I'd get back up and do it. And then during the day, it ran 24/7. I did it around the clock. There were multiple doctor's appointments in Indy. They could never get us the same day appointments. So it was genetics, it was feeding, it was therapy, physical therapy, it was OT appointments. It was with I think 4 or 5 different doctors down there on different days that we take her. And it wasn't you're in and you're out. You're there all day. Yeah. Yep. And it always felt like when we go to the doctor's appointments, it was you'd never leave happy. It was always something bad. Mm-hmm. So, and when we do that, if she was on oxygen, if she was sick, because when she'd get pneumonia or whatever she would end up having and be on oxygen, you had to make sure her portable oxygen was full. Yeah. And then you have to make sure you have all her feeding supplies in the bag. And you have to get her in the car, take her where you needed to go. And then we started, the therapies was at home, started at home. And then when she got into preschool, it was at school. So you had to make sure she had everything. And then once she she found out how to pull the NG tube by hooking her finger right here and pulling it out. And so then she got the Mickey button, which is a button. I call it a button. It was about this big that went directly in the stomach.
Yeah.
And you just hook the tube up there and feed her. So we fed her like that every 3 hours while she'd still started eating by mouth. And then she started using a feeding pump at night. So then when she'd sleep at night, she'd have all the tubes from the wires from the feeding pump and anything else while she slept.
So is that kind of like what I did with Austin when I babysat him?
That's exactly.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. So she was on a high calorie formula. Mm-hmm. She had to be on because she was small. She didn't want to gain. Yeah. She was gaining weight. She wasn't on their birth chart, which...
She was very tall.
Yep. That was a normal child's growth chart. She was not on that.
Yeah.
So the formula was $1,250 a month.
Oh, wow.
And we got assistance through Children with Special Health Care.
Yeah.
With special needs insurance, and WIC helped pay for it. So we'd also mix it with baby cereal to thicken it up, because sometimes she'd aspirate a little, and it would also add calories.
Okay.
So there was a lot of things we had to do to get just taking care of her during the day, and that wasn't, that's not including anything else.
Were you doing this kind of like by yourself, like taking her to the doctor appointments, like loading her up and doing all this by yourself?
Dad would go to most all the appointments.
Okay.
Yep, he would go to all the appointments. All the therapy was at home, but he would go to all the appointments.
Yeah.
But that's not including if I needed to go to the grocery, if I needed to go do anything else.
So I'm pretty sure we went to like grandma's during that time. Okay.
You would.
What were some specific challenges that you went through during this time?
Challenges to be a good mom, to be a good wife, to be a good person, because you tend to get angry easy or tired. Challenge to keep myself from breaking down. She needed me. You guys needed me. Learning things. Like, you're scared. Am I doing it right? What if I do this wrong? It could affect her health. So then I'm like, should I call the hospital? Should I call the doctor? Is this the right thing I'm doing? You weren't sure. There was a lot of challenges. It's just every day getting up. I would worry, is everything going to be okay when she wakes up? So, every little thing was a challenge with her.
Yeah. Did you have to have any knowledge regarding therapy or nursing?
I gained it as we went. I gained a ton of knowledge. It was the one time we were down at Riley, I said she was on the kangaroo feeding pump.
Yeah.
The Riley nurse, she's a nice lady, she said, I don't know what that is. I said, well, I got the pump from you guys. She goes, I don't know how to hook that up. So I had to hook up the pump for her and get everything set up for her when she stayed there. So there was a lot of things. As far as like nursing, it was, Kayla would get low blood sugar. So I'd have to stick her for that to make sure. I'd have to know when, with the low blood sugar, when to call the doctor. When, she was just tired. When her oxygen was low, when she was sick. If there was something wrong with her tube, if her tube was clogged, we had to have training with the NG tube to put it down before we were allowed to leave. I had to do a catheter a handful of times on her. I had to be trained on that. The Mickey button, when it was, we would change it out. So we were trained on that, and then we had to learn how to change that out. Therapy, you couldn't just go to therapy and watch, and then that's it, and be done. The therapist would show you what you needed to work with them on, show you how to do it. So then it was hard to, as much as you wanted to work with them and try during that, you also wanted to be mom and cuddle them and hug them and do that. But then you're like, but I got to work on OT and I got to work on PT and
Yeah.
I want to make her stronger with this. So the knowledge was tons. At one point, I wanted to be a nurse. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
I had enough knowledge that I think I could have probably have done it and done well at it. And then when we did lose her, and then I couldn't be a nurse.
With that nurse situation at the hospital, not knowing about the kangaroo, did you ever feel like scared or like nervous since she didn't know what to do if anything happened?
We never left Kayla except for if we ran down to the cafeteria.
Okay.
So I did it all. And the good thing, I guess, about a lot of the children's hospitals is they let the parents help take care. So I would, nurses do diaper changes and that kind of thing. But if the parents are there, the parents do the diaper change. The parents take care of the kids, that kind of thing. So I was still there doing everything, so I really didn't mind it as much. But yes, that did cross my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, you guys gave me the pump.
Yeah. And it's their job.
But I didn't mind showing them because it kind of, not the, I know what I'm doing, type thing.
It shows that you finally know.
Right. The look what I'm doing.
Yeah. Can you explain the schooling that Kayla went through?
She went to Bonavista Preschool. She went Monday through Friday, half day, morning. There she would because that's the only schooling she really went to, because the therapy she did before wasn't really schooling.
Yeah.
So she would play games, learn colors, numbers, all the kind of stuff. But in her class, she was in class with all other special needs kids, because at Bonavista, they had the special needs kids classes, and then they had the typical classes. And so she was in with the special needs kids, where she'd also receive her therapies.
Yeah.
So where I ended up also being her aide in her class. So that's really as far as the schooling as much as she did. But they did wonders there.
Yeah.
It was a great school.
So is First Steps, where she took her first steps, part of that?
No, First Step starts out as therapies at home. And then once they turn 3, they fall into the school system. So she started First Steps was the at-home therapies and that for kids, and even like Corbin did First Steps. That was for speech. But then she turned 3 and you have your first case conference with the school, and that's how she went under Western. Then Western provides and takes care of the preschool where she's going to go. And that's where you start getting into the IEPs.
I was going to
and all
ask
that.
if she had like an IEP.
She
Is
did.
it doesn't start with an F, I know. Or is it ISP, or
She
there's
had
one for younger,
I am not sure what that was called. She had an IEP.
from 3 to 21.
And see,
then
it may
below is another one. I
Yeah,
didn't know she
that,
did
and then I'm not sure because they may not have really done it back
Yeah.
then. But she would just have evaluations then. But no, we started the IEP, and Grandma brought home an IEP before, and we did a mock-up of what I wanted versus what they were going to probably offer. And I went in there. I don't want to say guns blazing, but I knew what I wanted and how I wanted it. And this is and I got it.
So you know how I am trying to get a degree in special education. So say I was Kayla's teacher, what would you expect out of me, and what could I do that could benefit her learning?
I would tell you not to treat her like the other kids. And, some people are like, well, don't you want them to treat them alike?
Yeah.
But don't treat them the same, because all kids are different. They learn differently. They act differently. They have different needs. So and that, I guess maybe that's where schooling is kind of different. I mean, it's just because Johnny over here learns this way and Becky over here learns this way, that's what they're strong at, how they learn. So you can't treat them the same.
Exactly.
Because he may be bad at it and she may be good at it, and then that's going to show.
Yeah.
So-
you can't hold them to the same level because then it's going to hurt someone's grade.
Right, exactly. And I'd expect that, out of any teacher.
Yeah. So the article states that each handicapped individual formulates his own response to his disability. How do you think Kayla responded to her disability?
I'm not really sure she ever realized she was different. She's always smiling, always center of attention. Here goes. Center of attention and overall just happy child. She never looked at any of the kids differently. They'd run, she'd crawl. So she never, I don't want to say she never reached the age where she got to, but she never ever saw herself as being different.
Yeah.
She would just play with the kids, and so she wouldn't run, she'd crawl. I mean, it was, the kids would help her, and they didn't look at her any differently.
I was going to ask that. If
They did not, our family did not, Other kids would. I mean, like wrestling meets.
Yeah.
I'd feed her in the bleachers. I don't mind kids stare.
Yeah.
Kids are curious.
Yeah.
They'd come up and look, and I'd show them that's how she's, eating. Oh, okay, adult stare.
That's different.
That is a big difference. I was very, I don't want to say mouthy, but I would get a little mouthy, and, what are you staring at?
Exactly.
If you want to ask, then come over and ask. You don't have to stare, and so that's where that kind of came in at. But she never realized that. She didn't realize she was any different.
I'm glad. What parenting practice did you use? Say like authoritative, neglectful, permissive, authoritative?
You sent me those, and I looked them up. I'm not really sure I fell in any of the 4 categories. Because I'm not a neglectful parent.
No.
I'm not, I don't want to say I'm like a really strict,
No.
this is the way it's going to be, my way or no way. Your dad acts like that, but he's not. The other one was the permissive. I had some of the permissive, but then when I started reading it, if I said I had some of the permissive, it made me sound like I was a bad parent. So I could see some of that and some of the other. And so, oh my God, it heard me say that. And so I'm not, so I guess I really don't have a style.
Yeah.
It was where I'm not a helicopter parent. I don't hover.
Yes. You just meet in the middle, I feel like.
The kid, I know, you guys respect our rules.
Yes.
We trust you guys till you give us a reason not to. You guys are open and honest. Well, with me, sometimes with Dad. And you talk to me about anything. But I'm your friend, but I'm your parent first.
Yeah.
Now, if we need to get mad about something and put rules on there, we do. But do we say, go do whatever you want, we don't care?
Yeah.
No. And there's a fly. But we also don't, say, you're not allowed to do anything, you're staying home.
Yeah.
We don't trust you, you're not doing anything. So I looked all 4 of them up to see if there wasn't maybe a 5th that I fell in between. And no, there wasn't one I could find. So that was one of them I sat and tried to figure out. And Cammie and Kaylin were trying to help me too.
Yeah, as I've grown up, I've noticed, like, I always thought when I was younger, like, oh, I have strict parents just because, like, I was younger and just couldn't do whatever I want. Yeah. But as I've grown up, like, I've realized, like, you guys had, like, the leniency. So,
right.
really
I mean, it wasn't, we didn't let you run wild, but we also put limits on you to keep you safe.
Yeah.
I just didn't make it as obvious.
Did you ever feel with, like, Kayla that you were kind of the helicopter parent?
Yeah.
Besides, like, between me and Caleb, like...
More her, because, I mean, she had to be.
Yeah.
She had a lot more.
Because you mentioned about, like, not wanting to go out.
Yeah, just because, like you guys, you could, if you were hungry or, you know, you could say what you wanted. She started learning signs, but
yeah.
I'd have to trust that person's going to hook up the tube, even though I know they know how.
Yeah.
It's not me. So I'm worried that maybe they did this wrong, or maybe they didn't do that right, or maybe she threw up and didn't get enough nutrients, or...
So would you change, if you could go back, would you change anything with that?
Probably not. I mean, I think we did okay.
Yeah.
I think we did an alright job. Question it sometimes too, but no, I think we did pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't think there would have been a whole lot we would have changed.
Do you feel that your attitude throughout the situation affected Kayla's learning of new tasks?
Which one that I was going to? I'm 21.
Oh, sorry. Did you ever feel that you were overprotective? How or how not? Looking back, what would you change?
I was more overprotective with her than you guys. Mm-hmm. There are some reasons why, but the main one is because she couldn't defend herself or protect herself. I was her advocate. If I didn't believe if something was right, whether it be school or the doctor, it was my job to speak up. Mm-hmm. She couldn't. I mean, it was, and as you'll learn going through this, it's the parent will be the advocate in most cases. The parent will be the advocate. Yes, the parent will be the advocate. Would I change anything? I don't know. What if part of me still questions if we would have done things differently? Would she still be here? If I could have stopped her from getting sick that one last time, would it change the outcome? To answer it, I don't know. I don't know if it would have. Mm-hmm. But everybody would have saw their life. I could lose hours and hours and hours, years of sleep wondering, but I don't know.
Do you feel that your attitude throughout the situation affected Kayla's learning of new tasks?
Yes. And I think that there was part of that in the article. And I do agree. And I see that now as I work at school, the kids with the positive parents who are really pushing them to learn have the positive, more happy kids, not as negative. So and this is before, I was always positive, always happy, supportive. Mm-hmm. And I think it helped in making her such a great kid and a learner. I'd never let her see me get upset, get sad, because she didn't take that step when we were working in therapy, or because she didn't do what she was supposed to do. And I always just was excited that she was doing her best, and that was fine with me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the positive attitude makes it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before I ask this next question, can you explain how she passed away?
She developed adenovirus. Mm-hmm. I think it was yes. That to you and me is a really bad cold, but it went into her lungs. Mm-hmm. The virus started eating her lung tissue, and since it's a virus, there's no medicine for it. Mm-hmm. So there was that, and then it went into pneumonia, and they had her on everything, and there was not a thing they could do to stop it.
Yeah.
So, and being with chromosome disorders, like she had a floppy epiglottis, which Lake has one also.
Yeah.
The floppy airway.
Yeah.
She can't cough things out as easy. Mm-hmm. So it gets congested in here. Mm-hmm. So it's harder to cough out things. Okay. So you go to back pounding things. A lot of that has to do with why those kids get sick. That's why they have lower immune systems, is because their body is more susceptible. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is what she ended up. It was pneumonia. Mm-hmm. So,
Um,
and sepsis. Because after you get that, then your body starts shutting down. And
I remember like finding out and like going to the hospital and everything. So how did you tell us?
Jamie and Tony brought you to the hospital.
Because I remember staying the night there.
And I came down Dad and I came down in the waiting room. Oh, downstairs in the very bottom, just the main floor. And we came out and told you she was gone. And that was probably one of the worst things I'd had to do. Because you guys kept saying it wasn't true. That it couldn't be true.
So we understood at that point.
Mm-hmm. You did. And and then a month after that, I had to tell your dad had cancer. But that was taken care of and we were fine. And then about 7 months after that, started your anxiety. So that was hard.
Yeah, just a lot of on your back and shoulders at that point.
Because that's not what you want to. I mean, no, I don't say that's not what you want to tell kids, obviously. It's not. But how do you tell your kid? Your sister's gone. But I knew. Because we had been in the hospital day after day after day.
Yeah.
And she kept needing blood transfusions. And they kept telling me they knew, you know. And I remember falling asleep. And thank God for your dad. Because he made all the final decisions. And he was afraid I was going to blame him for everything. There was nothing they could do.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep. And I remember walking. I dreamed. It was the weirdest thing. So if anybody ever doubts, there's another side. There is. I remember sleeping. And I saw myself walking down the hall. And I was coming down the hall. And my arms were empty. I wasn't carrying her. And I remember walking by. And I saw myself walking by. And in the dream I thought, she's gone. And everything was a bright white light, and she wasn't with me, and it was just me by myself. And that minute I woke up, I rushed to the room, and Dad said, we don't have it, we can't do anything else, so this is what we're gonna do. And I held her, so before, and then we laid her down. So I knew, and I wouldn't have that dream if I didn't know. My mom knows. There's instincts. Yeah. My mom knows. So.
At least you had Dad at that time.
Yep. Yes, this question made me cry at school, by the way.
How did your outlook on life change after she passed away?
Some of the stuff you may know, some of it you may not. I wrote some of it down, so some of it you will know. Because that's a big question. I lost Kayla. I didn't want to live. We walked, at that point, taking care of Kayla. I was on medicine to help control my anxiety. And we went out to the parking lot garage, your dad and I, after she passed away. And we were up on the 4th floor. And I started to climb over. And Dad yelled at me and yanked me back. And I would have, if I would have been by myself, I wouldn't have cared. I did not want to live. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't care. Because I thought it was a cruel, sick joke.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Many times I drove and thought, I'm by myself. I could just drive into this tree. And just go really fast and drive in this tree. Mm-hmm. You know, and the doctors, you know, I ended up talking to somebody and they knew. And I mean, I got, after I saw, you know, I've got my kids, I've got my husband. Mm-hmm. I would have absolutely crushed you guys to take not only your sister gone, but your mom away. Yeah. You know, and I couldn't do it. And I did, and everybody's head isn't right after that. So that's where, you know, the sadness was. I didn't want to do day-to-day activities. My life, which was the kids, you guys, was now gone. I had you guys, but you guys would go to school, and I'd sit at home because I took time off work. I had nothing to do, and I'd just sit. And then I started crying, and then I tried going back to work, and I worked where she went as an aide, and everybody was great, and it helped some. And then I come home in the evenings, and it was the quietness again, and she was still not there. So, as I got through that, then came the anger. And with the anger, it was directed straight towards God. And I was mad. And I guess some of it, I don't want to say a lot of it started then, but it kind of went there. And then I kind of was trying to deal with it. And then I had a knock on the door one day. And it was a couple older ladies, Jehovah's Witnesses. And I said, hi. I said, hi. And I said, I didn't shoo them away. I was trying to be nice. And I said, explain, I was like, I'm dealing with a lot, lost my daughter, but I'm trying to get through the understanding that, God needed her for something else. She's in a better place. And the lady says, it wasn't God that took her. It was the devil. The devil's the one that took her. And at that point, I was done. I was angry at everybody. I told them to leave. I yelled at them. I thought, why would you tell somebody that?
Yeah.
And who knows? I didn't question him. I just told him to leave. I didn't want it because God would never do anything like that. So I was mad at him. Why did he take her? I started thinking, well, she's better with me. There's no place better for a child than in a mom's arms. And so then the anger started to wear off. And now it's just kind of an empty hole. Which is not always a bad thing. You've got the memories, but there's always something missing. I guess I still have a lot of issues in some things. I don't go to church on a regular basis. I don't believe you have to believe in things. I do believe in things.
Agree.
But I also, which you've heard me tell Grandma this, because a lot of people don't agree with me, but it's fine. Grandma will say, well, prayers to this person, or I'm giving prayers. It's hard for me to say that because I've been on my knees begging and praying for Kayla, for Grandpa, for things that have, big things, but also small things.
Yeah.
And it's never worked. It's never worked. And so it's hard for me to believe that that's a thing that works. And Grandma's always saying, no, it's just something that does work. And it hasn't worked for me, but I believe in things, but I don't believe in some things that totally work. But I believe it's also made me a stronger person.
Yeah.
Because not that I was weak before, but I'm stronger since then.
The article states that when we live with the idea that winning is not only the most important thing, but the only thing, the potential for discouragement in special needs children is almost inevitable. How do you view this? And do you feel that Kayla had potential in life for anything possible?
Well, to me, we live in society now where I guess I see it both ways. Winning, everybody wants to win. But then now you see in society, it's everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a ribbon. Everybody gets a trophy. We're all winners. But that's not making us, to my opinion, better people. Because I was just talking about this in school today. You've got to fail. You've got to lose to learn to make yourself a better person. Because if you're always winning, you don't know what you need to fix to make yourself a better person. So Kayla had the potential to do anything. There wasn't anything I don't think she could have done. But it wasn't by the doctor's growth charts or by when she should developmentally do this. It's when she wanted. It was, like taking her steps when, she finally did. It was doing it her way. She did it when she was ready. and I didn't care when it was. It was on Kayla's time, and that's what we always called it. Kayla's time. Kind of like her 20-pound party.
Yeah.
Remember that? She hit 20 pounds. We had a huge party for her, cake and everything. That was her 20-pound party. So,
can you explain more about her steps and like the feeling of her accomplishment?
it was, we were at Bonta Vista. We kept working on her taking her first step. And it was, trying to think when it was, I want to say it was October, or it was end of summer, beginning of fall. And kept working on for her to take her steps, and she finally did. And she walked like 8 steps. They did a big article on her in the paper about taking those steps, and I guess that was a huge achievement for her. I was so excited. Such a big thing. Everybody talked about it. It was a huge article. I guess it's kind of hard to read now because a lot of the goals that were set were like, she's going to be running across the living room New Year's, and, you know, a lot of those things. But those steps, I guess, kind of, not that it made it easier, because nothing can make it easier with her, but her getting those steps was such a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was on her time, not when the doctors say she needed to do it.
Yeah, because she was 3?
She was 3. Yep. So, if you go off of, you walked when you were 13 months. Caleb walked when he was 9 months.
Yeah.
Kayla walked when she was 3.
I mean,
there's no set.
Yeah.
You did it when you were ready. Caleb did it when he was ready, and Kayla did it when she wanted to. She was ready then.
So she walked into your arms, right? So just like that feeling
was just great.
Indescribable.
Yeah.
I bet.
It was great. And I still talk to all her therapists to this day. I'm friends with them on Facebook and talk to them all the time.
Yeah. Can you explain your mental and physical state throughout Kayla's life and kind of after?
Mentally, at the beginning, I would say I was weak. As I learned, I became stronger. I was mentally strong for her, but physically I was drained. I learned to cope with like little sleep because I always felt someone, you know, was out there dealing with something worse. There was always something somebody had to deal with that was worse. So there was a lot. I was all over the place emotionally, but we dealt with it, and I think we did pretty well.
Did you ever have any concerns while taking care of her?
One of my biggest concerns was if I was doing things correctly. You know, I would double and triple check everything with the doctor. The other concern was if I ever lost her. You know, what if I woke up and she was gone in her sleep? What if she got really, really sick and she passed away? So that was probably my biggest fear, which then in turn became reality. And there was nothing I could do to change it. So I would say that was my biggest concern.
In the end, what have you taken and learned from this aspect in life? Has it changed you as a person?
Skip one. Skip it.
Oh no. No, did you have any concerns? This one.
Oh, sorry.
In the end, what have you taken and learned from this aspect in life? Has it changed you as a person?
I've learned a lot having Kayla. Medically, emotionally, physically. I'm 100% a different person. 100% a different person. Where I was, I guess, not that I was a pushover before Kayla, but I was quiet. I didn't speak up a whole lot. I just, if something was going on, I just kind of, you know, just
kept to yourself.
Let it be. You know me now. That's not the case. I'm first one to defend my kids. First one to defend any kid, any adult, anything at all that I feel is right. I'll defend any cause. I feel I'm a better person, a better wife, a better mom that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes your dad has to get on me that I need to be quiet, but that's okay because I do feel that I speak up when I need to.
You want to make a difference,
right? And I try not to do it at times that shouldn't be appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think working at schools helped me muzzle my mouth a little.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any advice you would like to give to anybody raising a child with special needs?
Be your child's best advocate. Mm-hmm. Speak up if you feel something is wrong. Be happy to see their smiling face every day. You were given that child for a reason. Mm-hmm. And start and end every day with kisses and hugs. Be thankful.
For sure.
Because you don't know when you will have them. And I've given lots of advice to parents. I've helped different parents get their kids set up with Social Security, with insurance, with doctor's visits, with everything. And I try to be helpful. So I think, be that advocate.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can't speak for themselves.
So to end on a positive note, tell me about your life now and what you have done since Kayla has passed.
Since I lost Kayla, my husband and I waited a year. Decided to have one more child, a girl, Cammie. She's the free spirit of the family, to say the least. Stayed at home when I had Cammie until last year. Mm-hmm. And then I took a job as a special ed aide in 4th grade at West Durham. This is where I graduated from high school, and also all you guys.
Yeah.
I liked working at Monte Vista. I did love it, but I absolutely love working now. I did not take any sick days last year. The only days I took were personal days. Mm-hmm. So I love getting up every morning and going to work with the kids. I love the people.
That's how I want to be.
It could maybe say it's in the blood. Or maybe you could say Kayla made such an impression that she's still affecting our lives in positive ways. Mm-hmm. My mom's your grandma, a retired special ed teacher. Caleb's a junior at Trine. He is a special ed elementary ed major. You the same? Mm-hmm. And I'm at 4th grade doing the same thing. And I think she still affects everything we do nowadays.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.